Hey guys, today's episode we're just looking to look at the possibilities that Boston has in their roster now that the NBA Finals have finished, and I'm looking at what Boston has in their current roster and the possibilities they have coming into the draft and free agency. All of my research comes from Hoopie, ESPN, Bleacher Report, The Jump, and The Ringer. So everything I say is based on actual facts and things that can happen. I start off with looking at the draft, draft possibilities. We look at moving up in the draft. And then finally, we look at the free agency and what Boston can do in this year's free agency. To start with, we're looking at the current roster. So what Boston has in their current roster. We've got obviously Kyrie and Gordon Hayward coming back from pretty bad injuries. They missed the playoffs. So in essence, Boston has two all-star free agents coming in that they didn't have in this year's playoffs. And we're only one game short of making the finals anyway. We look at the salaries of what we're working with because we've got to stay within that salary cap. So I've here showing that three of our players, Kyrie, Gordon, and Al, are all on their second or third contracts. Our two of our starters are actually working within they're still on their rookie salaries. Obviously, Jason Tatum being a rookie, 5.6 owing until 2021. It's also to note that Kyrie will be on a player option going into 2019. So at the end of this next season, he may opt out of his contract, which is most likely, and take up the free agency in 2019. So that's to be noted as well, and we'll look at that further. So here we actually look at the depth that we've got. So these players have all got options or contracts for the 2019 season. Marcus Morris has a 5.6 for next season, and then he's done. Becomes a free agent in 2019. Terry Rozier ends his rookie contract in 2019 as well. And Daniel Theis is only being a second round draft pick last year, although he's on his rookie contract this year. He's only got that 2-year deal. Two of the free agents that come up are Marcus Smart and Aaron Baines. Both of those players played substantial roles in the playoffs and will be seriously looked at and re-signing. We'd hate for Marcus Smart to walk at the end of the year, and Aaron Baines did an awesome job this year in the playoffs. So in order to look at a consistent approach and some data to support where we're at, I use the performance rating from ESPN's website. So PER, we're looking at the 2018 regular season, and a few points to note. Obviously, Gordon Hayward was out for the whole season, so I've taken his performance rating data from 2017 and put it into this slide here now. Also, just to note that the postseason numbers that our young guys had with Terry Rozier, Jaylen Brown, and Jason Tatum, all of their numbers in the postseason went up. Now, obviously, Kyrie went down late in the season, so in March he went down. So Terry Rozier's numbers went up, obviously due to time. But just so you can see, Jason Tatum went up to 18.5 points per game, 2.7 assists, and 4.4 rebounds in the postseason compared to his regular season. So his performance rating would be on par with about an 18 performance rating. Jaylen Brown, 18 points per game in the postseason compared to 14.5. Still had 1.4 assists and 4.8 rebounds, so that stayed consistent. But his performance rating with that extra 4 points per game would have gone up to about a 15 performance rating. Terry Rozier obviously smashed what he was doing in the normal regular season. His numbers in the postseason was 16.5, 5.7, and 5.3 rebounds. So he would have been up around the 18, 19 performance rating mark in the postseason, which was massive, and that's why his value's gone up massively. So we'll look at that later as well. So our average performance rating for our top 6 players was 17.67, and the actual playoff rating just there is 19.2. Now, the reason I only use 6 players is that as the postseason gets into the end, the roster's shortened. So you probably only go to a 7 or 8 player rotation once you hit the finals. So we're just looking at an easy number, 6. You can look average those results and compare them across a whole range. So natural development, we could see an increase, and we might already be on par with Golden State Warriors being the obviously pinnacle. I'm going to use them as an example of where we need to get to be the top team in the league. So even with natural development, we already might be there. Looking at the postseason numbers and putting them forward. So where are the number 1 team in the league? So where's their performance ratings at? So here's their numbers. Steph Curry, 28.32. That's just massive. Him and LeBron were the only 2 around that mark for the season, should be noted. So the Golden State Warriors, 19.14. So we've got to look at how do we get there. All right. So we look at what are our draft options. So we've got the 28th pick this year. So what can we do with that? So some of the players that we're looking at would be, because we have the flexibility in our roster, and I'll show that in a minute, we can just go with the BPA, the best player available in the draft with our pick. Jalen Brunson, he was a junior at Villanova, so they won. They went to the finals for the NCAA tournament. Obviously, massive season. He's got some good pedigree because his dad used to play as well. 18.9 points per game over the regular season in the NCAA. Great option at guard. Dante DeVizioso, he was the player of the NCAA finals, AA finals. So his stocks went up big time coming on to the playoffs. So when it came into big games, his numbers went up. So he's a bit of a clutch player. This guy hasn't been thrown much around in the draft, but I watched a heap of NCAA games, and he was always someone that was really high on my charts. Out of West Virginia, Canute. Double machine, looking at points per game, rebounds, and also a great blocker. Would fit in well as power forward. And the last player that I've sort of identified is Devonte Graham, who was a senior out of Kansas. He run their point there. So he would be a definite consideration for somebody who could run that second unit. Looking at what we've got with Terry Rozier, he might go to the number 2 on a starting lineup, and then someone like Devonte Graham would then be able to run the second unit. So we look at our roster. I've placed Terry Rozier into the number 2 because he's really deserving of that starting role. On most teams in the league, he'd be running point for many teams. We look at Kyrie, obviously playing our point, Terry Rozier with his 3-pointers, Jason Tatum, Gordon Hayward, Al Horford playing 5, whereas that's probably not his natural position. It would be better to have him as playing number 4, stretching the floor. But in this roster now, it should be noted too that I've put in Brown and Smart into that lineup because we really should be looking to re-sign them. The second unit then has Graham and Brown running at the guards. Morris Thies, who coming off injury too, was really good this last season. And the depth is there. So it looks really balanced. It's a great lineup, plenty of balance, looks good. But depth isn't always what you want to look for. As Toronto showed in their postseason, having an awesome bench and having depth to be able to move down and doesn't help a lot when the rotation's short, and nothing beats getting some more all-stars into your lineup. So that's what we'll now look at. So how do we, while this is a good roster, how do we add that extra all-star? So the three ways we can do it is either move up in the draft and look to move that 28 pick up, and probably solidify a centre because that's our weakness, and then you can move Al Horford to the power forward. We could look to make some minor tweaks and look to use Terry Rozier's stocks at the moment because they're sky high to improve the centre position, or make some big whale moves. And these are a bit of Hail Marys, but a bit of fun that I'll end with in a moment. All right, so our number one draft prospect, if we were looking to move up in the draft, would be Mo Bamba. There's plenty of articles around at the moment looking at comparing Mo Bamba to Rudy Gobert. He has much of the same strengths. He's listed 6'11" there, but I think that was at the start of his freshman year at Texas. He's now listed at 7 foot with a 7'9" wingspan, which is ridiculous. He's got the largest wingspan ever recorded in the combine. Also, a massive standing height and vertical jump. He's long and lean, so you'd be looking to put on a bit of strength, muscle mass, but he's a blocking machine. Defensively, he's one of the top prospects and like on par with DeAndre Ayton for that top center spot. And he would fit in perfectly into our lineup as in the number 5, allowing us to move Al to number 4. So where exactly will Mo go? So Phoenix have shown that they're pretty set on selecting DeAndre Ayton at their number 1. The Kings, there is some change there. Doncic was listed at number 2 going to the Kings, and but though he's since gone down in the latest mock trade. So Mo wasn't identified as one of the players that would move up to that position. But realistically, Mo Bamba would go from 3 to 6, but maybe 7 at the Bulls. So what we'd be looking for is getting a trade between the Hawks down to Orlando, maybe the Bulls, to get up into those positions to get Mo. All right, so how do we do that? Obviously, Jaylen Brown's a possibility, but that's not a good one for us. Jaylen Brown has got plenty of potential. He's going to be one of our future superstars, so that doesn't really make sense, and wouldn't really make us better for the 2019 season if we did lose Jaylen to get Mo. The other option is Terry Rozier, and this makes a lot more sense. Terry's only got 1 year left on his contract before he, like IT said, back up the Brinks truck. Terry Rozier would be looking for a massive payday, depending on his season this year, but based on his postseason, he'd be looking on for like the teens in terms of a contract. If you package Terry Rozier in the 28th pick, possibly the 2019 pick, for a Mo Bamba, that makes a whole lot more sense. If we could avoid using that 28th pick, we could get Devontae Graham as a backup point guard, plus re-sign Marcus Smart, and that move would work. So ideally, what we could do is look to the Kings, because we do have the 2019 Kings pick. Selling that back to the Kings plus the Terry Rozier, you might even be able to get up to number 2 in the draft. And then that would definitely get it done. Looking through the other players in that game, the Hawks, if they lose Schroeder, and there's a little bit of talk about Schroeder going to play with Booker at the Phoenix, and there's a couple of other articles about Schroeder not being happy with the Hawks. If that happened, then Terry Rozier could slot into the starting point guard role for number 3 there. Grizzlies, they'd be set. Conley isn't going anywhere. There's no talk of breaking up Conley and Gasol, so there's no real possibility of getting that number 4 pick. Similarly to Dallas, because they've got Dennis Smith Jr. As their long-term point guard prospect. Orlando is the other one. So if Mo Bamba was still around at number 6, Orlando would be keen for taking Terry Rozier. At the moment, they've only got DJ Augustine, who plays, and Sam Mack, that both of them, they need an upgrade in their point guard. So that's probably the biggest chance there of getting into number 6 with a Terry Rozier pick, plus maybe that's 2019 pick or the current 28th pick. That would be a good trade if we made that happen. The other thing is, and this is just throwing the Hail Mary out there again, is to be really super aggressive in the draft and use both the Terry Rozier plus the 28th pick to Orlando to pick up Mo Bamba if he's still on the board at number 6, and then using Jaylen Brown and possibly the Kings' own first round 2019 first round pick to get that number 2 spot, signing someone like a Luka Doncic. And you put them into that roster, that's got the makings of an all-star team there. So Luka Doncic, Kyrie Irving, Jason Tatum, Mo Bamba, and Al Horford, and you've got Marcus Smart, Gordon Hayward, and Marcus Morris running the second unit. Yeah, that's a pretty beast team, but that's unlikely to happen. That you'd give up both Jaylen Brown and Terry Rozier to make that happen. But Danny Ainge does smart things and look at it. All right, the other option that we've got there is that we look to just do some minor tweaks to improve our roster. So most of this is around the fact that Terry Rozier is on his last year of his contract. We can't pay everyone and stay in the salary cap. So Kyrie Irving, there are some issues around him too, that there's some recent articles that he's going to the Knicks, or he could go to the Knicks at free agency. He could decline his player option in 2019 and then look to move to the Knicks or someone else. That's unlikely. Who'd want to leave Boston? That's the thing though. But Terry Rozier, if we've got those other players, isn't going to get paid. So we could look to, rather than go with Mo Bamba and using that 28th pick and moving up in the draft, we could go with somebody to replace Terry Rozier while his value is sky high. So he only has 1 year on his contract. So then we look at, all right, so we could sign him Willie Cauley-Stein or Pascal Labissiere. These are the options that we have, and I'll just briefly show you through those now. So Terry Rozier's rating about a 15, playing in the second unit, playing the last part of the season as the starting point guard. We look at performance ratings of some of those other bigs because that's the position we really need to strengthen, because if we can sign and if we can maintain that 28th pick, we can get a good point guard to run the second unit, and we can move Al Horford to his natural position as a power forward. So if we looked Willie Cauley-Stein, John Collins, you'd be unlikely to get that for a Terry Rozier. May happen if they move Dennis Schroeder then. That's obviously the number one option with a performance rating of 18.3 in his rookie season. John Collins is a great pick. Some of the other options there, Marquise Chris didn't do much this year. His stocks are low, but in our system, maybe Brad Stevens is able to do something with him. Miles Turner, his stocks aren't great at the moment, and especially since the Pacers had a number of players in that role. Miles Turner in the playoffs was the second string, playing in the second unit. So he's got a massive upside and would be perfect in our system. Now, he was drafted in the same year as Terry Rozier, though. So they've both got 1 year left on their contract. So you'd be looking for a payday next year if you were able to sign Miles Turner. But then, again, you'd have his bird rights. One player that may be of interest is Jonathan Isaacs. So he was injured with ankle injury for a lot of the season, so didn't really get to show his upside. But there's plenty of talk that he's going to be a great player in the future, so he might be another option. The realistic ones, probably get a Willie Cauley-Stein. If you could get Jonathan Isaac or Miles Turner, you'd do it. All right, then the final way to improve our roster is through free agency. And we know there's a whole heap of great players coming up in free agency. So recently, after the playoffs, there was talk that LeBron could go to Boston. This is an unrealistic one, but it can happen. So to make this happen, it's pretty simple actually. We would just look to shop Gordon Hayward and Marcus Morris, because their combined salary is about 34 million. For this to happen, though, LeBron has to sign his player option to be 35 million with the Cavs, and then it'd be a sign and trade. And Boston would probably need to throw in a sweetener with one of those 2019 picks. So that's the trade: Marcus Morris and Gordon Hayward plus a pick, and then you've got LeBron, but you've only got LeBron for 1 year, similar to what happened with Paul George to OKC this year. You've got 1 year to keep him and make him happy and get him to re-sign for 2019. There's a lot of talk that Cat isn't happy at the Timberwolves. So Minnesota obviously has 3 All-Stars with Jimmy Butler, Karl Anthony Towns, and Wiggins, an All-Star. He's on a max contract at least. He's not playing at an All-Star level though. But Cat is obviously young, awesome center, like massive upside, performance rating there, 25 points per game. To make this one happen, it's not unheard of. It's pretty easy. I don't know if anyone else has used this before, but the ESPN trade machine, you can run some trades through what you like and to make it happen. So Cat this year is on a 6.2. I think next year it goes up to 6.8 on the final year of his rookie contract. You'd a straight switch with Jaylen Brown. So the option 1 is Jaylen Brown for Karl Anthony Towns. You probably have to throw in at least the Clippers pick for next year. Maybe you need to sweeten that a little bit more too, but that's just a straight salary swap. It still keeps us within that hard cap limit, so that works out. So cap for Jaylen Brown. The other option you can go with there is to sign a couple of their players that they're looking to get rid of. So that salary, 7 mil for Cole Aldridge, and then it'd be a Kyrie Irving trade. So that definitely would be something that the Timberwolves would be interested in. Kyrie Irving for Karl Anthony Towns. If I was Boston, I'd be looking for getting them to throw in Peyton as a filler. But then that we also have Minnesota have that second string point guard that they could throw in as well in that rookie year. So those are the 2 options to get Cat, both realistic options. We've been trying to recruit Anthony Davis for 2 years now. I don't think he's going anywhere. So we won't talk about that one too much because AD is pretty much untouchable. Kawhi Leonard. So obviously he's somebody that everybody's trying to get to the bottom of why he's unhappy at the Spurs. Missed all but 9 games this year to the quadricep tendinopathy they called it. So a tendon issue, or the attachment of the tendon to the muscle, to the bone for the quads. So definitely somebody who would fit into our system perfectly. Him and Kyrie on the same contract, both at the exact same amount, 18 mil each. That would be a straight swap. Do you trade Kyrie Irving for Kawhi Leonard? Yeah, it's that's a tough one. So if you did, you've got no point guard. So let's say we did go with Kyrie Irving and Kawhi Leonard. Let's say we did go with Cat and Jaylen Brown, and you've gone with the Miles Turner's traded for Terry Rozier. You've got an abundance of forwards there and no guards to run the show. So what you'd have to do is you'd look to trade Gordon Hayward. Obviously, in that previous example, I didn't go with the LeBron trade, but Gordon Hayward putting on the market, for some disgruntled guards. So Damian Lillard, obviously Portland got swept in the first round. He had a meeting just before the playoffs with his general manager and wasn't real happy. Obviously, the CJ McCollum, Damian Lillard thing isn't really working out. The other option there is DeMar DeRozan. He's not happy. Obviously, sitting out the fourth quarter in a crucial playoff game, being benched. Casey getting sacked. Does that mean that they've taken the side of the player over the coach, possibly, and they're going to try and make that Kyle Lowry, DeMar DeRozan thing work? But I don't know. You could shop Gordon Hayward for either of those two players because there's some rift. I would personally go with Damian Lillard, but yeah. And if that happened, you plug Damian Lillard into the lineup with Kawhi Leonard, Jason Tatum, Al Horford, and Kat, and that's just a beast lineup. Miles Turner on the bench with a couple of other players. So the new look 2018 roster would look something like this compared to the 2018 roster, where obviously remember Gordon Hayward and Kyrie Irving didn't play in the playoffs. So that's the new look 2018 roster, 2019 roster. Damian Lillard, Kawhi Leonard, Jason Tatum, Al Horford, Karl Anthony Towns. You look at the performance rating in that, 21 points per game to Boston, and you're well and truly above Golden State as the favourites. We are plugging in Zaza Pachulia as their centre, which is probably not true because JaVale McGee got the nod in the last two games over him. There might be other players, that Jordan Bell maybe, that is the future of Golden State in that rotation. But their Hampton five with Andre Iguodala was their best five combo when Draymond Green played in the center position. So there you go. So there's probably some unrealistic expectations there, but realistically, 2019, you either sign to move up in the draft and you get a Mo Bamba, or you stay with your 28th pick and you get a Dante or a Graham or somebody, and you plug them into your rotation, and it's still a pretty beast team. Kyrie, Jalen, Jason, Mo Bamba, and Al Horford, ideally, and that's Marcus Smart. Would you plug in there, and Aaron Baines because you've re-signed both of them, and there's your realistic 2019 roster.